Okay, we are back rolling semi-live here at the CAIS conference, CAIS Summit, I should say.
Yes.
And we have with us Mike Vogelzang, who's the CIO of Captrust.
Yep.
Mike, thanks for joining us.
Sure, my pleasure, Chuck.
All right, so we kind of arranged this a little bit last minute, but we had a great conversation sort of off camera, so we tried to recapture some of that.
Sure.
So what we talk about on goRIA, fueled, of course, by InvestmentNews, is going RIA.
Yeah.
And who better to talk to than the CIO of a not small shop?
Right.
You were talking about some of the numbers, and my memory is going to not serve me well here, but give me those numbers because they were kind of staggering. What are you guys at right now?
Yeah, so we have a firm that specializes in both wealth business and all of institutional. So we have a lot of defined contribution business. We have an endowment and foundations practice, and we have a wealth practice. Altogether, combined, assets under administration is over $1 trillion. So it's a big firm. We've got 1,700 employees, and we're growing quickly. It's been a great business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone knows about Captrust, of course. I was really excited to have some time with you today, and we're putting our mic, the noise-canceling microphones to the test. There's a lot of background noise.
There is.
I keep threatening at some point to have another camera to get the B footage because there's a lot of good stuff going on here, but perhaps for the next conference.
Right.
So here's what I'd like to talk to you about. So we're talking about going RIA. There's so many different ways of going RIA. Mm-hmm. And perhaps there's so many different types of RIAs and advisors doing different types of business.
Right.
So you're at $1 trillion. Mm-hmm. How do you assimilate this one shop that's an individual stock shop, an ETF shop? We were talking about a DFA shop, a Vanguard shop. How do you get all those people to get into that same ecosystem? Yeah,
it's one of the fun and interesting challenges because there's most investment advisors that we deal with have a lot in common, frankly, in terms of the type of people they are and their dedication to their clients and the ability to service them well. But when we're looking and having firms join us, and we've done lots and lots of acquisitions over the last 7 or 8, 10 years. What you find is that different RIAs invest differently. Some are more focused on taxes and they use a very simple investment strategy, maybe an ETF, asset allocation, rebalance once every quarter or something like that. Not a lot of effort goes into the investment process. They're trying not to lose. You have others that are that might be using DFA or others that use both active and passive investment vehicles in a fund, and they're a little more active in their allocation. Some use alternatives, some don't. Some have something as idiosyncratic as saying we never go longer than 2 years in our bond management, right? And again, as you point out, some are individual stock shops. So what we've had to do at Captrust as we take these firms in and help them get over the hump of integration is effectively we have to provide our managed portfolio services for all of that different type of fulfillment. You can't have a firm that has been preaching to their clients the primacy of ETFs, right? And passive indexing and consistent rebalancing. These 25 years with some of these same clients, and have them jump in and say, oh, now that we're part of Captrust, which is very similar to us, by the way, and we're going to have to do an individual stock shop for you, right?
Very similar, except completely different.
Completely different, right. So we're very sensitive around that. What typically we've done is gone into those firms, and again, most firms have a way to do it. Some have a couple, but most are fairly narrow. And what they all really want is additional breadth, right? So we had a wonderful firm join us not too long ago that did really very smart, tactical, quantitative ETF strategies, rotational strategies in sectors. Really nice record. Wasn't for everybody, but they were doing the best they could. When they joined us, we have a deep and robust, I think it's $7 or $8 billion now in individual stock portfolios that we manage on behalf of our clients for no additional cost other than the advisory fee, right? They hadn't had that opportunity before. And so all of a sudden they presented it to their clients as a new offering, and they've been one of the fastest growing offices that we've had in individual securities.
I think you see that a lot when a smaller firm joins a larger firm. Yes. And they start experiencing those efficiencies, right. And they can stop worrying about, I got to rebalance this portfolio and the trades didn't clear, and they worry about everything other than growth.
Right.
Do you have any stats on that? Like people that have joined, they've gotten rid of all the back office needs, all the compliance needs, and they're just focusing on growth?
Well,
how does that work?
I could tell you from firsthand experience. So I owned a principal owner in a firm in Boston called Boston Advisors. 5 years ago, we sold our wealth practice to Captrust. The dirty secret of this is that smaller firms without a natural distribution channel have a really difficult time growing beyond markets, right? Because clients are taking 4 or 5% out every year. You lose a few through folks passing away and so on. And as a result, you end up really working really hard to not grow much, and you hope the market goes up. That was very much of our firm back in 2019. Since then, we've accelerated our growth rate substantially over that, above market, above all of that. And that's because we've tapped into the marketing and sales capabilities that Captrust has at a bigger firm. So that's clearly on the sales side. The biggest challenge for firms, the smaller firms that are joining us, has been being able to, bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan, right? The old phrase, where they've had difficulty managing the money, communicating that really effectively in a professional way, and then going out and getting new business and taking care of their clients. Our job at Captrust, as the central research team, central investment group, is to really take that load off them if they choose. And as a result, what happens is the firms that use our team, both for managed assets and all the rest, not only get their portfolios managed in a professional, smart way with, generally and hopefully historically really strong performance, they've also get all of the communication that goes along with that. As a smaller RIA, being able to communicate consistently and professionally to clients is really difficult. At our firm, it was always, all right, who's going to write the quarterly letter this quarter? Like, I can't do it, I'm too busy. No, you do it, right? It's really a burden. At Captrust, we have full teams that can manage all of that communication, and it's directly as part of our investment team, so it's in sync. So all of the sort of smart, lined up communication that goes along with your portfolios. It's an enormous lift off the advisor. As a result, we've seen advisors accelerate growth rates once they join us.
Yeah, and what you're talking about there is process, right? And I find these smaller shops, especially like the 1 or 2 person shops,
right.
They're doing everything all the time, but there's no real repeatable process.
Right.
And I think when you join, a larger firm that has these processes established, it does free up the time for these folks.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. I want to pivot a little bit. So
Sure.
you're talking a lot about bringing on other firms.
Yeah.
Do you guys recruit directly from the BD space as well? Will someone go from like one of the wirehouses directly to you as well?
On occasion.
But that's not the bread and butter for you
It's
guys.
certainly not the bread and butter. The cultural gaps are really significant. We found. And so there's no shortage of really high quality, well-run, seasoned, mature RIAs that are looking for the next stage of growth, the next stage of development for their firm. And thankfully, lots of them find Captrust to be that good fit.
Yeah. Interesting. So that kind of goes back to the idea of going RI and the different ways to do it.
Sure.
Right? So you have a lot of firms. My shop, Sovereign, much smaller. We're not at $1 trillion yet. Ours is more with a B handle.
Keep it up. Keep it up. You'll get there.
But we kind of really cater to that advisor that wants to go from the BD world to the RIA space, but without the hassle.
Right.
But there's a way to do everything in this space.
Right.
And we're at the CAIS Summit.
Yeah.
We would be remiss if we didn't talk about alternatives.
Yes.
And I'm getting this less and less, but I'm still getting it. Mm-hmm. I got it a lot 7 or 8 years ago from the broker-dealer advisor that's looking to go RIA, and they're like, well, how can I possibly do blank without a Series 7? And the answer is, you don't need a Series 7 for anything anymore. Certainly not alternatives. CAIS is a great example of this. Certainly not annuities, insurance. There's commission-free options for everything. You want to shed some light on that as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've taken a very different path than alternatives. We have a deep research bench. We have access. We have an institutional business that's doing institutional quality and caliber alternatives. The real challenge for wealth clients and wealth advisors when they're not as I don't know, just experienced in the alternatives world, is to find interesting ones that make a cohesive and well-developed portfolio. Of course, the challenge with alts is it can be a 10 or 15-year commitment. And it's not a large cap growth fund that if it doesn't work out, you just flip the switch, you go to your rebalance or trade it out, and you move on to the next one. This is a much more complicated problem than that. And so what we've tried to do is be a real curation vehicle for our advisors. Right? We're not trying to be Walmart where, in some ways CAIS and other competitors they're just trying to be a marketplace, provide whatever you want to see on the marketplace. We're trying to do something very different internally, and we think it's a smarter way to think about it. And again, it goes to your point about scale. Because we have scale, because we have size, we can spend the time and the money to do this. And that is to do a really deep research effort on the alternative space and come up with what it means to be a Captrust advisor in alternatives. Okay. That's harder to find. But yes, there's between what are traditionally drawdown funds, right, where you get capital called and you're invested for 15 years, or today's hot dot is the tender fund, right, where you get some liquidity. We haven't been through a full market cycle of those yet. We'll see how those play out when everybody wants to leave at the same time. We hope the liquidity portion works reasonably well. But those are still a bit untested, but they are part of the democratization of alts for the wealth clients, for sure.
Without question. And I'm a big believer in the democratization of it, as long as the client understands what the liquidity is, because these are not mutual funds.
Right.
But I think good advisors, which most advisors I believe are good, are explaining that properly to the clients. And I got to tell you, having a resource like CAIS for a lot of firms has been just an amazing opportunity to get into these alts in a way that I think would be pretty hard otherwise not to.
Well, for sure, right. So CAIS really, from our perspective, we just hired CAIS earlier this year. And we spent a lot of time trying to find the right place. So CAIS does a wonderful couple things really, really well. One is their platform, their technology platform, which is what we've really hired them for. We curate our own investments. We build our own funds. We get the funds on the platform that we want to use. But their technology underneath is really terrific and developing at a really quick rate. So it's improving almost every day. We're really happy with the way Matt Brown and his team have sort of executed on that. The second is, which really for smaller RIAs, and that is the curation and availability of funds on their platform. That's where it gets a little more difficult if you're a smaller RIA and you don't have a lot of research depth to find what you need. It's easy to get sold in this business. There's a lot of really smart business development people coming in trying to get smaller RIAs to participate in their deals. So that's a word of caution, because it is a complicated topic. We have one of the guys on my team is from Alabama, and he said, he's a wonderful phrase that captures that. He says, if an alternatives provider is coming down here and knocking on my door, that means they've missed about 100 people beforehand. I want nothing to do with it.
Okay. Well, I think that's probably a good place to end it for this particular segment. Great asset category for sure, but like with any asset category, do your due diligence for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, Mike, thanks a lot for taking some time
Chuck.
here today. Appreciate it. And that's it for this particular segment. We have a couple more left for today, so stay tuned. And on behalf of goRIA, fueled by Investment News, I'm Chuck Vela, and I'll see you soon. Thanks again, Mike.